Before we get started, hit the comments and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is over there. Whether you're catching sunrise in Nairobi, burning midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to hear from you. Don't just watch silently, let me know where in the world you are. Now let's dive into the story. Colonel Sarah Vance stood in the middle of Coldwater Base's command hall, her boots planted on the scuffed concrete floor, her face lit by the flickering red alarm she did not authorize. Around her, dozens of officers moved with rushed confidence, some barking orders, others ignoring her entirely, like she was invisible. Or worse, optional. The humiliation stung deeper than any wound she'd taken in battle. She had been sent here to stabilize the most chaotic base on American soil, yet the men who should have saluted her were treating her like a ghost. A joke. A mistake. She raised her voice again. Stand down those drones. That is not an authorized strike. Lieutenant Cordell didn't even look at her. He pushed past her with a muttered, "We'll take it from here, ma'am. HQ gave us clearance an hour ago." But Sarah knew that was a lie. She had checked the encrypted channels herself. No clearance had come. What they were about to launch, a retaliatory drone fire into a civilian-adjacent zone, would destroy lives, ignite an international incident, and bury the truth behind smoke and metal. She could feel their intentions hiding in their eyes. Resentment, pride, and a dangerous belief that they didn't need her permission for anything. Her throat tightened. They weren't just ignoring her, they were defying her on purpose. Testing her. Cornering her. And somewhere deep inside the base, someone was feeding them instructions behind her back. She stepped toward Cordell, refusing to let the tremor in her chest show. "Lieutenant, that operation is illegal. You power those drones and I will." He finally turned, and the smirk on his face made her blood freeze. "You'll what? You have no control here. White House barely remembers this base exists. And they certainly don't care about you." The room went silent. Everyone heard it. Everyone felt the slap in those words. Even the hum of the screen seemed to pause. Sarah's vision blurred for half a second, her pride cracking open like glass. She had endured gunshot wounds, ambushes, and night missions without blinking, but this cut deeper. To be dismissed by the very men she was sworn to lead, it hollowed her. Before she could respond, the drone bay doors opened with a metallic groan. Lights powered up. Engines whirred. Cordell issued the launch order without hesitation. And the screens lit up with targeting grids. Sarah's breath caught. "You're going to start a war." Cordell shrugged. "It's already started. We're just choosing who wins." Her heart slammed against her ribs, not from fear, but from a boiling, unstoppable fury rising all the way from the bottom of her spine. They didn't just ignore her. They humiliated her. They were about to commit an act that would stain the entire country. And they believed she was powerless to stop them. But they didn't know what was about to come from Washington in the next hour. They didn't know the White House had already seen everything. They didn't know she was minutes away from holding full national authority. They didn't know they had just betrayed the wrong woman. The chaos inside Coldwater Base hadn't always been Sarah Vance's reality. Months before the humiliation that cracked her spirit in the command hall, she had stepped off a transport jet with quiet confidence, the icy Wyoming wind whipping through her dark braid as she surveyed the rugged landscape. The base sat in the middle of endless snowfields and silent mountains, isolated, forgotten, and perfect for secrets no one wanted the world to see. She had arrived believing she could fix it, that she must fix it. But from the moment her boots touched the tarmac, she sensed something was wrong. Soldiers watched her with a strange, calculated stillness. Some nodded politely, but their eyes were guarded. Others whispered the moment her back turned. And none of them looked relieved to see a colonel sent to restore discipline. It was as if they expected her to fail. As if they already knew she wasn't welcome. The base commander, Brigadier Harlan Creed, hadn't greeted her at all. Instead, he sent an assistant with a clipped message. "He's unavailable. Settle in on your own." That was the first red flag. The second came later that evening when she walked into the operations wing and caught Lieutenant Cordell and two others huddled in a corner, whispering over encrypted tablets. They froze when she approached. Screens snapped dark. Smiles appeared, too quickly, too broad. "Just routine analytics, ma'am," Cordell said. But Sarah was no rookie. She had spent years in intelligence tracking traitors hiding behind perfect behavior. She had seen that same nervous flicker in the eyes of men who thought they were untouchable. Still, she gave them the benefit of the doubt. She wanted to lead without suspicion. She wanted to earn trust, not demand it. And maybe, some naive part of her hoped, they would eventually see her as someone worth following. Her first week was polite but cold. Her second week was quieter. By the third week she could feel something shifting under the surface, a tension like storm clouds gathering beyond the mountains. Missions weren't recorded properly. Briefings were held without her. Schedules changed without notice. Ann Creed, the ghost commander, never once met her face to face. She sent reports to Washington. Nothing changed. Yet, one night, unable to sleep, she walked outside into the frozen night air. The moonlight glowed on the abandoned watchtower, on the motionless vehicles, on the silent hangars. Something about the stillness felt wrong, like the whole base was holding its breath. Then she noticed something she had missed before. Truck tracks circling the perimeter fence, fresh in the snow, but no trucks were logged leaving or entering that day. Someone was moving equipment in the dark. Someone with power. Someone with access. That's when she felt it, a shift deep inside her chest. Not fear. Not anger. But the unmistakable realization that this base had its own heartbeat, its own loyalties, and none of them belonged to her. Still she stayed. She fought. She pushed deeper. Because one truth grew louder in her mind with every passing night. Coldwater Base wasn't broken by accident. It was broken by design. And someone wanted it to stay that way. Asterisk asterisk. Sarah Vance just didn't know yet how far they were willing to go to silence her. Sarah Vance woke before dawn, the kind of cold, brittle morning where the air itself felt on edge. She dressed in silence, her fingers brushing across her uniform's collar as if reminding herself who she was. Asterisk a colonel, appointed by Washington, sent to restore order. Asterisk but titles meant nothing in a place where loyalty twisted like barbed wire. As she stepped into the operations hall, she noticed it instantly. Whispers that stopped the second she entered, screens dimmed too quickly, soldiers straightening with the stiffness of children caught stealing. The base wasn't just ignoring her, they were preparing for something. She approached the briefing table. A folder lay open where someone forgot to hide it. Inside were drone routes she had never authorized, looping in aggressive patterns over a border zone known for its fragile peace agreements. She felt her pulse spike. This was no drill. This was provocation. The kind that could start a fire the world wasn't ready for. Before she could study more, footsteps echoed behind her. It was Captain Lorne, one of the few officers who treated her with a thread of respect. His face was pale tight. "Ma'am, you shouldn't be here alone." She turned sharply. "Why not?" He hesitated. A dangerous hesitation, the kind men have when truth could get them killed. "Because some people think you're standing in the way." The folder snapped shut in her hands. "Standing in the way of what, Captain?" He swallowed hard. "A plan that's been in motion long before you arrived." There it was. Words that made her stomach knot. She sensed the tremor in his voice, fear, guilt, maybe both. She stepped closer, lowering her tone. "Lorne, if you know something you need to tell me. Lives could depend on it." His eyes flicked toward the security cameras, their red lights blinking like watchful eyes. "Not here," he whispered. "They monitor everything. Even private comms." She felt her breath freeze. "Who's they?" But Lorne didn't answer. Instead, he handed her a small scrap of paper, folded twice. She slid it into her palm just as Sergeant Pike walked into the hall, his boots loud, his stare too direct. Lorne snapped straight, acting like nothing happened. Sarah sensed the fear spreading across his shoulders. Pike's gaze lingered on them, long enough to make her skin prickle. "Colonel," Pike said, voice smooth but sharp underneath. "Commander Creed wants all officers in Hangar 2 for an unscheduled briefing." Sarah caught the faintest flicker in Lorne's eyes. "Don't go." But she had to. If she avoided it, she'd look guilty. If she attended, she'd step into whatever trap they'd prepared. Either way, she was playing a game she didn't understand yet. Pike waited with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sarah nodded. "I'll be there." As she walked away, she finally unfolded the scrap of paper hidden in her hand. 3 words, written in shaking handwriting. "They're replacing you." Her breath left her in a single cold exhale. Not demoting her. Not sabotaging her. Replacing her, without permission from Washington. And if they were willing to do that, there was no telling what else they had already done. Hangar 2 was colder than the rest of the base. A wide metal cavern where sound echoed like something trapped. Sarah stepped inside expecting a briefing table, maybe a projector, maybe Creed finally showing his face. Instead, she found a semicircle of officers standing stiffly, their expressions unreadable, their uniforms perfectly pressed in a way that felt staged. Too clean. Too prepared. Captain Lorne wasn't among them. Sarah felt that absence like a punch. Lieutenant Cordell stood near the front, hands behind his back, smirk waiting like a blade. And beside him, Sarah's stomach tightened, was Commander Harlan Creed himself. Tall, broad, silver hair, icy eyes that held the kind of calm belonging to men who made decisions without losing sleep. This should have been her first face-to-face with him. Instead, he looked at her like she was an inconvenience that someone forgot to remove. "Colonel Vance," Creed said, voice smooth as polished steel. "We need to address your performance." The officers shifted. Not one saluted her. Not one acknowledged her rank. It was deliberate, coordinated, a show of unified disrespect. Sarah kept her chin lifted. "My performance? Or your refusal to follow federal protocol?" Cordell's smirk deepened. Creed didn't even blink. "This base requires leadership aligned with our operational needs." "Our operational needs?" Cordell echoed. The phrasing landed like a threat. A shared mantra. A plan rehearsed. Sarah scanned the room, every instinct firing. This wasn't a briefing. It was an ambush. A political one. A military one. And possibly something darker. Creed took a step closer. "We have voted to transfer operational authority to someone more compatible." Her chest constricted. "You can't vote on federal chain of command." Creed's pupils tightened. "Coldwater operates under different expectations. We are too far from Washington for delays, too vital for hesitation. And frankly," he paused, letting silence tear into her, "the men don't trust you." Sarah's jaw clenched, but she stayed steady. "Trust isn't built on sabotage. It's built on transparency. Which none of you seem interested in practicing." A ripple of irritation moved through the officers. Cordell stepped forward. "We have already drafted the report stating your inability to command. Creed will file it within the hour." Sarah felt heat rise in her spine, anger, humiliation, betrayal mixing into something sharp. "You're fabricating grounds to remove me." Creed didn't deny it. "For the safety of this country," he said. "And the integrity of our mission." "What mission?" Sarah asked. "No one has shown me anything real since the day I arrived." The silence that followed crackled with danger. Cordell leaned in, lowering his voice. "Some missions aren't for everyone. Especially outsiders." Her heart sank. They never intended to accept her. They never intended to follow her. She wasn't part of their circle, their agenda, their secret operation pulsing underneath this base like a second heartbeat. Creed lifted a tablet. "Effective immediately, you are relieved of command pending confirmation from higher authority." Sarah forced herself not to react. "And if higher authority refuses?" Creed smiled for the first time, slow, cold. "They won't." But just then the hangar doors slid open behind them. A soldier ran in, breathless, holding a sealed black envelope dispatch. "Commander Creed, urgent communication from Washington. Eyes only, priority level." Every head turned. Suddenly the air shifted. Creed took the envelope. His confidence didn't falter, until he saw the emblem on the seal. His face drained slightly, a barely there crack in his armor. Sarah saw it. Cordell saw it. Everyone saw it. The seal was unmistakable. Executive White House Command Authority. And it was addressed to Colonel Sarah Vance. For a moment, no one breathed. The black envelope sat in Commander Creed's hands like a live explosive, silent, heavy, waiting for the first person brave enough to touch it wrong. Sarah felt the shift ripple across the room, a wave of unease that cut through the officers' smug unity. The White House emblem glinted under the hangar lights like a warning flare in a dark ocean. Creed's jaw tightened. He looked at the seal again as if hoping he was mistaken, then lifted his eyes to Sarah. Something colder than fear flashed there, recognition. He knew what this meant. They all knew. This wasn't routine. This wasn't protocol. This was intervention. The kind that ignored every chain of command except one, the Oval Office itself. Creed didn't hand it to her. He couldn't bring himself to. Instead, he held it just long enough to pretend he still had authority, then extended it with stiff fingers. "For you," he muttered. Sarah took the envelope, her heart pounding in her ears. The paper was thick, the seal embossed deeply. Executive orders didn't travel lightly. As she cracked it open, Cordell subtly leaned forward, eyes hungry with paranoia. The officers shifted like restless wolves, sensing the ground beneath them tilting. Inside was a single sheet of ultra-secure stationery. Blue border. Government watermark. The kind used only when every second mattered. She read the first line. And everything inside her shifted. Effective immediately, Colonel Sarah Vance is granted full national operational authority over Coldwater Base and all associated military assets. Her breath left her. The room erupted in silence, sharp, absolute. She continued reading. All personnel, including Commander Harlan Creed, are to follow her directives without delay or modification. Any interference with her command will be considered obstruction of national security. She lifted her eyes. Creed looked as if someone had pulled the ground out from under him. Cordell stepped back, face pale, hands suddenly trembling at his sides. Officers who once blocked her path were now avoiding her gaze entirely. But Sarah's face stayed calm, controlled, decisive. She read the final line aloud, her voice steady enough to cut steel. Colonel Vance's authority supersedes all local command structures until further notice. This order comes directly from the President. The last word dropped like a hammer. Creed inhaled sharply, his confidence cracking into something raw. There must be a misunderstanding. There isn't, Sarah replied. She folded the letter with deliberate calm. Washington has been watching this base far longer than you realized. Cordell snapped, you can't just. Yes, Sarah cut in, stepping toward him. I can. She handed Creed the folded letter. You will assemble every officer on this base in the command hall within the hour. I will be issuing new directives. Creed's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time he looked small. Sarah turned to leave. The hangar seemed to widen around her, every bootstep echoing like a shift in destiny. Officers parted without a word. No resistance. No smirks. No whispered jokes. Because now, they understood. The woman they tried to push out, the leader they dismissed, the colonel they tried to humiliate, was now the single highest authority for miles. And she had no intention of being ignored ever again. Coldwater Base felt different the moment Sarah stepped out of Hangar 2. The wind still cut through the air like sharpened glass, the snow still hissed across the concrete, but something else had shifted, something human. Soldiers who once pretended not to see her now straightened as she passed. Some saluted stiffly, unsure. Others lowered their eyes, guilt carved into their faces. The authority she carried felt heavier than her uniform, heavier than her instincts. But she didn't let it slow her stride. She headed straight to her quarters, shutting the door behind her. Only then did she allow herself to release one sharp breath, the kind you hold through a battlefield and only exhale when you realize you're still alive. The White House order lay on her desk, a silent reminder that whatever was happening here had reached the highest office in the country. That meant the problem was bigger than disrespect. Bigger than mutiny. Bigger than any personal attack. It meant something here was dangerous enough to terrify Washington. She unfolded the scrap of paper Captain Lorne had given her. They're replacing you. The message felt even more ominous now. Replacing her for what? To carry out the unauthorized drone routes she'd seen? To push a mission that could ignite conflict between nations? Or something even darker? A soft knock hit her door. Not aggressive. Not demanding. Just one hesitant tap. Sarah opened it. Lorne stepped inside, closing the door quickly behind him. His eyes darted toward the corners of the room, as if expecting microphones to crawl out of the shadows. You saw the envelope, she said quietly. He nodded. Everyone did. What's really happening here, Lorne? He ran a tense hand through his hair. They weren't removing you to promote Creed. They were removing you to bury oversight. Creed's been running unauthorized operations for months. He reports to someone, but it's not Washington. At least, not the Washington you think. Sarah froze. Meaning? Lorne swallowed. Private contractors. Shadow groups. People with money and influence. People who want Coldwater off the books. Her pulse thudded once, hard. Those drone routes I saw, Sarah said. They weren't training flights, were they? Lorne shook his head. They were staging runs. Testing how close they can push the border before triggering international response times. They want to provoke a conflict and sell solutions to it. War is profitable, ma'am. The room felt colder, sharper, like the walls themselves stiffened. Why tell me now? She asked. Lorne's voice cracked. Because I didn't sign up to help start a war. He hesitated. And, they know I talked to you. Her breath stilled. Who knows? He looked at her with haunted eyes. Pike. Cordell. And whoever they answer to. As if on cue, alarms blared across the base, sharp, violent, echoing through every metal wall. A red emergency light flashed outside the window, painting Lorne's face in pulses of blood-colored light. Sarah grabbed her jacket, instincts snapping into command mode. What is that? Lorne's voice shook. It's the lockdown siren. Someone just triggered a high-security breach. Sarah stared toward the door, mind racing. Sergeant Cole stood frozen, the classified folder still open in his trembling hands. His face, usually arrogant, smug, untouchable, had drained of every drop of color. He wasn't just pale. He looked haunted. Across the room, Captain Reyes watched him with cold, measured eyes. On the cot sat the woman he had tried so hard to intimidate, calm, steady, unreadable, as if she already knew every second of this moment was coming. Her name on paper was Staff Sergeant Lena Hart. But inside those pages, that wasn't who she was. Cole swallowed hard, throat clicking like dry metal. He looked up at Reyes. "Sir, this can't be real." Reyes didn't blink. "Read the rest." Cole's hands shook as he continued flipping through the pages, each one more shocking than the last. Medical reports with entire sections blacked out. Records from operations that weren't supposed to exist. Photos that blurred the lines between myth and reality. Cole felt sweat gathering at his temples. "This file, it says she ran an entire infiltration op alone." His voice cracked. "In Syria. Then again in Myanmar. Then again in... Sir, this says she neutralized an enemy strike team with no backup." Reyes nodded. "Keep reading." Cole did and nearly dropped the folder. A page stamped in red. Operation Nightfall, Sole Survivor. He stared at Lena, still sitting on the cot with her hands resting loosely on her knees, as calm as ocean water at dawn. "You were the one?" Cole whispered. "The ghost of Nightfall, that was you?" Lena didn't answer. She didn't need to. Reyes stepped forward, voice low and dangerous. "Everything you thought you knew about her was wrong. She wasn't transferred here because she was a problem. She was transferred here because this is the only base secure enough to house someone with her history." Cole's heart hammered. He turned another page, then immediately froze. There was a mission photo. A grainy night vision shot of a woman standing alone in the doorway of a collapsed compound, bodies and smoke behind her, eyes glowing with the reflection of infrared light. It was her. Lena Hart. Except she looked like something you'd send into hell, not someone you'd try to bully in a hallway. Cole exhaled shakily. "Sir, why wasn't this briefed to us?" Reyes stepped closer, voice dropping. "Because if any of this got out, half the world's intelligence agencies would try to kill her. And the other half would try to recruit her." Cole shut his eyes. His stomach twisted. Everything he had done, every insult, every attempt to intimidate her, every smug comment, flashed through his mind like a series of stupid, reckless mistakes. He felt sick. "Sir, I messed up. I didn't know." Reyes raised a brow. "You didn't ask, you just assumed. And that assumption could have cost more than your pride." Cole slowly lowered himself into the nearest chair. He looked again at Lena. She finally raised her eyes to meet his. Cole, sure. Beautiful in a terrifying way, like a blade that had been forged in war. "You wanted to know who I was," she said quietly. Cole nodded, unable to speak. "Well," she continued, "now you do." The air thickened. Cole whispered, What happens now?" Reyes turned to Lena. "She decides." Cole's breath hitched. Lena stood. The room seemed to shrink around her, not because she was imposing physically, but because her presence carried weight few humans ever possessed. She walked toward Cole slowly, boots echoing on the floor. He braced himself for anger. Instead, she stopped in front of him and said, "Next time you want to measure strength, don't start with intimidation." She leaned in slightly, enough for him to feel the heat of her voice. "Start with respect." Cole nodded rapidly. "Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I'm sorry." A faint smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Not mocking. Not cold. Just knowing. Reyes stepped forward. "Good. Because Chapter 8 starts tomorrow." Cole blinked. "Chapter 8, sir?" Reyes smirked. "Your first joint operation with her." Cole's face went blank. Lena turned away, her voice drifting behind her like a warning from fate itself. "Try to keep up." Dawn broke over Coldwater Base with a bitter, pale light, casting long shadows across the snow-dusted hangars. Lena Hart stood in the briefing room, boots planted firmly on the metal floor, eyes scanning the holographic map projected before her. The room smelled faintly of coffee and tension. Captain Cole sat rigid, notebook open but hands trembling. This was his first real mission alongside her, the first time he'd see if the legend matched reality. "Listen closely," Lena began, her voice calm but commanding, cutting through the cold silence. "We're entering a rogue facility 40 miles northeast. Intel indicates a high-value operative is being held. The base has been compromised. Enemy surveillance is active. No mistakes." She paused, letting the weight of the mission settle on everyone present. Soldiers shuffled uneasily, some daring glances at her boots, her steady stance, her eyes that seemed to pierce straight through doubt. "Cole," she said, pointing a finger. "You cover the northwest perimeter. One breach and the operation fails. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am," he stammered, already feeling the pressure tighten like a vice. The rest of the team nodded, their faces pale but determined. Lena turned back to the map. Lines of red blinked across it, indicating patrol routes, motion sensors, and drone corridors. Every detail had been meticulously planned, every angle accounted for. "Timing is critical," she continued. "We move in precisely at 0430. Minimal noise, maximum efficiency. Follow my lead and we all get out in one piece. Deviate and you die." "I'm not issuing that as a threat, it's fact." Cole swallowed hard. He had trained for operations, read about raids, watched simulations, but nothing could have prepared him for the weight in her voice. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't bravado. It was absolute certainty. By 0430 the team was in their vehicles. Lena sat in the lead Humvee, scanning the frozen landscape through night vision goggles. Her hands were steady on the wheel, her jaw tight, eyes narrowing at every shadow. Cole followed, silent, gripping his rifle as if sheer willpower could keep him alive. Snow crunched beneath tires as they approached the rogue facility. A perimeter fence glimmered under faint floodlights. Enemy guards moved in calculated patterns, unaware they were walking into a trap designed by someone who had been there before. Someone who had survived missions that made most soldiers' nightmares look tame. 3, 2, 1, Lena whispered, activating a small device that disabled the facility's external cameras. Shadows deepened, silence thickened. The team moved in like ghosts. Every step calculated. Every breath measured. Lena led them through the dark corridors, signaling with hand gestures that were sharp, silent, and absolute. Cole's heart raced, adrenaline burning through every vein. He wanted to speak. He wanted to ask a question. But she had already taught him the first rule of working with Lena Hart: do not distract her. They reached the inner chamber. The door was reinforced. Lena crouched, inspecting the lock. One click, then two, and it slid open without a sound. Inside, the operative was bound but alive. Guards slumped in their chairs, unconscious from the precision gas Lena had deployed. Cole could barely breathe. The operation had been flawless, like watching a legend in motion. Lena turned to him, her eyes sharp and unyielding. "See that? That's what authority looks like. Not intimidation. Not threats. Control. Skill. Precision." Cole nodded, awe mixing with terror. He realized in that moment the truth everyone at the base had ignored. Lena wasn't just a soldier. She was a force the world wasn't ready to challenge. And for the first time he understood why the White House had given her full authority. The storm outside the base was coming, but inside, Lena Hart was the calm in its eye. By mid-afternoon, Coldwater Base had transformed. Soldiers whispered behind closed doors, officers moved with hesitant caution, and the hum of machinery and radio chatter carried a new tension. Everyone knew, Lena Hart was no longer someone to test. She was the law, the power, the unstoppable force. And yet, the resistance simmered like coals under snow. Lena walked through the operations hall, boots clicking sharply, eyes scanning every officer, every tablet, every shadow. Commander Creed met her gaze and flinched. Cordell's jaw tightened, the smugness gone, replaced by something dangerous, a mix of fear and desperation. "You've ignored my orders for the last time," Lena said, voice low, measured, and lethal. "Every rogue operation, every deviation, every single action contrary to federal law ends now." Cordell stepped forward, trying to assert himself, but the moment his eyes met hers, he froze. There was no bravado in Lena. Only authority sharpened to a blade. "You don't," he began. "I do," she interrupted. "And if you make a move to defy me, Washington knows about it. You think the White House order is paper? Try it and you'll see it in action." The base held its collective breath. Soldiers adjusted rifles nervously, officers glanced at one another. Some had already begun reassembling mission plans under her direct supervision. Others lingered, unsure if resistance was worth their careers, or their lives. Suddenly, alarms blared. Not training. Not a test. Multiple alerts across the base. Intrusion detected in the western perimeter. Lena pivoted, eyes scanning. "Cole," she barked. "Secure the perimeter. Move." Cole raced toward the breach, boots pounding. Lena followed, commanding the floor like a conductor directing an orchestra. As they moved, she assessed every angle, every officer, every threat. The resistance wasn't just external, it was within. Sabotage had already begun. At the western hangar, they found the root of the chaos, a rogue squad of officers led by Pike, attempting to override Lena's new command system. The room smelled of sparks and tension, metal clashing with the weight of betrayal. "Step aside," Lena said calmly. Pike laughed nervously. "We don't answer to you." "Not anymore," Lena replied. In less than a heartbeat she moved. Efficient. Precise. Every strike measured. Pike and two others went down, stunned, unarmed, utterly neutralized without a scratch beyond their pride. Cole stared in awe and fear. Lena didn't raise her voice. She didn't rage. She simply executed authority the way soldiers dream of doing but rarely see. The remaining officers in the hall stopped resisting, their faces pale. Creed looked around desperately, realizing the rebellion had failed. Lena stepped forward, her eyes piercing every lingering trace of defiance. "You have a choice," she said. "Follow orders or be removed permanently. This base runs under my command, from now until Washington says otherwise." Silence swallowed the room. Cole finally exhaled, realizing the full scope of the transformation. The base had been a powder keg and Lena Hart had detonated the spark of order, discipline, and absolute respect. Creed slumped, defeated. Cordell's shoulders dropped in reluctant submission. Even the whispers stopped. Lena turned to the team. "We have work to do. The rogue facility mission was just the beginning. From now on, this base operates as it should, with precision, legality, and loyalty. No exceptions." As she walked back toward the operations center, Cole followed, awed, shaken, and profoundly aware of one immutable truth. This woman had changed everything. The humiliation, the betrayal, the attempts to push her aside, they had all led to this moment. And now no one could stop her. Coldwater Base had never been quieter. The storm of rebellion and betrayal had passed, leaving a fragile calm, the kind that hums through snow-laden hangars and empty corridors. Lena Hart stood in the command center, boots planted firmly, the White House order displayed on her desk like a shield and a sword. Every screen, every tablet, every soldier now answered to her authority, and it felt like the first true breath of control she had taken in months. Commander Creed had been escorted to secure confinement under federal supervision. Cordell was reassigned to administrative duties pending review, his pride shattered, his defiance extinguished. The rogue officers who had plotted against her either faced immediate disciplinary action or had been quietly removed. The base was hers, not just by title, but by the absolute respect and fear she had earned. Cole approached, notebook in hand but hands steady this time. His eyes held a mix of awe and relief. "Ma'am, the base, it's listening. It's really listening." Lena allowed herself a faint smile. Not smug, not triumphant, just a small easing of tension she had carried like armor. Good. Because that's how it should be. Discipline, respect, and the chain of command, intact. That's how a base survives and how it saves lives. Outside, the sun began to rise, pale gold streaking the snow-covered mountains. Lena looked out the window, letting the light wash over her face. She thought of every moment that had led here. The defiance, the betrayal, the threats, the humiliation that had once made her feel invisible. Every obstacle had been a test, a brutal, unrelenting test. And she had passed. Not with force alone, but with strategy, calm, and unwavering authority. Cole spoke again, voice quieter now, almost reverent. "Ma'am, what happens next? Do we stay ready for more?" Lena turned fully toward him, eyes blazing with controlled fire. "We stay ready. Always. But we stay accountable too. This base doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the mission, and to the country. That's the difference between authority and power. Remember that, Cole. Never forget it." He nodded, understanding the weight behind her words. For the first time he truly respected her, not because of the legendary file, not because of the White House order, but because of the integrity she carried, the authority she wielded, and the unshakable calm with which she guided everyone around her. Across the base, soldiers moved with renewed precision. Systems were audited, operations streamlined, and morale, long buried beneath layers of distrust, began to rebuild. Whispers of Lena Hart's deeds spread quickly, not just in fear but in admiration. She had been underestimated, humiliated, and ignored, but she had rewritten every expectation. Finally, Lena returned to her office, closing the door and sitting at her desk. She allowed herself one moment of reflection. She had been sent here to clean chaos, but the chaos had been much deeper than anyone imagined. Now it was under control. Now she had full authority. And now, everyone who had doubted her would remember this day, the day a woman refused to be ignored and became the power no one could challenge. Her phone buzzed. A secure line. Washington. She answered, calm, precise, authoritative. Colonel Hart. The voice said, reverent and urgent. Your command has been acknowledged nationwide. Good work. The country owes you. Lena looked out once more at the frozen expanse, snow glittering like diamonds in the morning light. It's not about thanks, she said quietly. It's about duty. That's all that ever matters. And for the first time in months, she allowed herself a long, steady exhale. The storm had passed. The base was hers. Justice had been served. The White House's trust vindicated. Coldwater Base would never forget who commanded it. And neither would the world.